Welcome to A Canadian Investing in the U.S., a podcast and YouTube channel focused on Canadians buying real estate with host Glenn Sutherland.
Welcome to a new episode of A Canadian Investing in the U.S. with Glenn Sutherland. This week, my guest is Kristopher McEvoy. Kris is going to be one of the speakers at the conference September 14th, 2024. It'll be the second annual Canadian Investing in the U.S. This year, it's focused on residential real estate rather than the multifamily real estate due to popular demand. Doubletree Hilton at the Toronto Airport. So that's on Dixie Road because there is two Doubletree Hiltons over there. One's like just a little bit farther away though. September 14th. Kris will be there. Kris, you want to start off by giving everyone a bit of an intro to yourself?
Sure. So my name's Kristopher McEvoy. I'm a cross-border accountant. My firm is located in Fonthill, Ontario, which is in the center of the Niagara region. I've been working on cross-border taxes and entity structuring, tax planning for over a decade now. This area of my practice has really become quite popular in the last 5 years. In addition to that, we do a lot of work with people who are planning emigration, either Canadians moving to the US or vice versa. And so our firm is really uniquely positioned to help people that are investing in real estate on both sides of the border, as well as people who may be considering some international relocation as well.
That's awesome. And full disclosure, Kris is my Canadian CPA and has helped me do all these wonderful things over the last few years. Kris, I was going to fire a few questions at you, and then we'll get into our conversation. We'll see where this leads. The one question I had in mind that I wanted to pitch towards you is, what risks do Canadians have when they're investing in the United States if they decided not to use a cross-border accountant such as yourself or someone else who was an expert at this?
So for a Canadian resident who's getting involved with U.S. corporations in general, and more specifically with U.S.-based real estate, there are ample opportunities to make mistakes. Problem number one is you can't rely on the general advice that's out there, because what a U.S. accountant would say to a U.S. resident in no way applies to a Canadian resident, and will likely cause them problems in terms of not protecting them enough for liability, and also exposing them to potential double taxation, which is one of the worst things that can happen to you in a tax sense. Past that, there are also lots of other informational filings that are required as part of all this. And so if you try to do it yourself, it is quite likely you'll end up paying more in penalties than it ever would have cost you to hire a good accountant. So that's number one. And number two, there's a lot of opportunity to save and to optimize for taxes. So you would also be losing opportunities. I do periodically go into, chat groups, Reddit, other forums where people will be discussing these things. And there is a lot of inaccurate information out there. A lot of it does come down from what I mentioned at the beginning, which is that which advice is tailored to you depends on who you are, which country you live in, which assets you have, and how you're structured. So oftentimes people in there are deeply confused because they'll say, well, my accountant told me this. And then someone else says, well, my accountant said some other thing to me, right? And everyone in there is comparing not even apples to oranges, but apples to watermelons, because no one's situation is the same. And that's not a way that you can make heads or tails of it.
Yeah. No, definitely. Well, plus, like, even still with some of these forums, they're not up to date, right? Like, could be a post from 10 years ago, 5 years ago, 2 years ago, because laws are constantly changing, right?
I would very much agree with that. And in fact, on the Canadian side, a lot of the new reporting requirements and some of the tax changes are as little as 2 years old. So even someone who's had a structure for more than a couple of years really may want to consider revisiting that and updating themselves, because depending on why they started doing it the way they did it 5-10 years ago, there may be some things they need to modify. There may be some things they need to add or change, because even what was working for them as little as 3 years ago may need some tweaking.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. I don't know if this is even something that you come across, but do you find that people come to you once they've have made some mistakes and they're trying to get you to fix that? Or is that more you try to get, you usually have them ahead of time?
We take everyone. A lot of people who are getting involved in real estate are newer to the game, so to speak, and so those folks are sometimes easy because we can give them the right advice right off the bat, help them avoid a lot of pain and a lot of problems, and that's always nice to see. But if somebody has maybe acquired a structure or been doing things in a certain way, then we can usually help them get from wherever they are to wherever they need to be. Sometimes that's a little trickier, but we're always there to help.
Yeah, you mentioned that like a bunch of people have they read misinformation. What would be like an example of something that they've come across from forums that you like commonly have to sort of debunk about a misinformation?
So sometimes the setups are just too simple. If they've, let's say, just gone to a local lawyer to do their purchase, they'll have their property sitting in an LLC and that's it. And they'll be a Canadian directly investing in the US with an LLC. So that's probably the most common big no-no that I come across, because they just say, I had a great realtor. Realtor gave me to the lawyer that they usually work with down in whichever state there is. And maybe no one has even asked them where they reside or anything like that, or haven't given it any thought, or don't know that there's a really big tax implication to doing that for income tax. They're just thinking, well, what would I do for any other local resident? You buy a property, you put it in an LLC. Because if you're a US person, that's standard practice, right? So that would be probably the most common boo-boo that I see.
Yeah, and for instance, I know in that situation that is fixable. So some of these things are fixable. In all honesty, most situations are fixable. You might even just have to close something down if it's done completely inaccurate. You might get caught with some penalties or fines or just bad tax. You've been taxed poorly, right, or double taxed in some of these situations. I recently had a phone call from someone who listens to the podcast. What they told me was that they'd sent money to a contractor. The contractor basically ran away with their money and didn't complete the job. Since I hate to hear about this happening to people. So because of this, I just created a video with a bunch of common mistakes that Canadians make. Sometimes it's because they're new to investing, and sometimes it's just they're new to US rules or US regulations. People can go through it and ideally try to make way fewer mistakes, because I don't want to see anyone else lose their money. If you're interested in this video, go to a Canadian investing in the USA.com/mistakes. I hope this helps some people. Back to the podcast. First, I just want to keep this one short. I appreciate you coming out. I'm looking forward to hearing you speak at the conference again this year. Anything I should have asked you before we wrap this up?
No, I think that pretty much covers it. If people want to hear a little bit of what I have to say before the conference, they can check out my couple of episodes on your podcast. And we also have our contact form on our website, leapact.ca. Yeah,
perfect. So you can just reach out to Kris and schedule a call and see what works for you in your situation or what you're trying to do, right? Kris, like always, I appreciate you coming on the show. And for everybody listening, Kris will be at the conference September 14th at the Doubletree Hilton, Dixie Road beside Toronto Airport. And yeah, reach out to me. And if you're looking for tickets for that, it's glensutherland.com/conference. And we'll see you all there. I'll shake everybody's hands and I'll try to teach you as much as I possibly can in an 8-hour period.
That was a nice video. Bye.